Yo, 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 yo. What up, what up, what up, huh? Good people. As promised, good people, the hair is done. Can you see it? I don't know if you can see it. You can see the hair. The hair is done, good people. I promised you that the hair would be done, and it is indeed not sloppy today. Welcome in. We have a wonderful program in store for y'all today. But before that, of course, you already know that I do have my little housekeeping. If you are here, you are required by nature itself to like the video. Okay? Please like the video, good people. Nature said so. It was written in the clouds this morning. Hand to Flob. Hand to Flob. It was written in the clouds. Please like the video. Subscribe to the channel. If you leave a comment, try to get at least 6 words in. And we're best friends. Also, if you are here on the Inner Storyteller podcast, you are in for real conversations, good people, not fake ones, not always comfortable ones. Okay? We talk about natural law. We talk about religion, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the great. We talk about money. We talk about anarchy, culture, and how mankind is manipulated by forces that do not have our best interests at heart because they may be completely evil, allegedly, maybe, perhaps. Also, we are never bashing faith systems or calling people names for having or adhering to religions on this podcast. We are simply examining the psychological affects and effects of the stories that we have the most faith in as a human family, the fruits, the results of such, and looking at the stories we have the most stake in and how they shape society. Now, that examination, of course, sits right alongside an honest look at the current human condition, which is slavery. Government is slavery. And the question we have to keep coming back to is what could actually be improved with a proper understanding of the inner storyteller and how it works. Now, if any of that makes you uneasy, makes you a little angry, or just makes you uncomfortable in any way, please understand and remember and be assured and reassured, good people, that although you are 1000% encouraged to stay, you are welcome to leave after you like the video. Now, today, I am interviewing John Bush. I am going to ask a few questions to the man, the myth, the legend, John Bush. But before that, I prepared a little monologue to kind of set the tone, set the stage, turn the light on, Mr. Host. There we go. And then fix the light settings because they always change when they're off for so long. There we go. Much better, much better. And yeah, I'm gonna get into this monologue, then we're gonna bring in John. We're gonna have some questions to answer and some things to look at. Let's get into it. Y'all know I'm a big fan of The Matrix, especially the first 3 movies, but I also love the 4th one. And there is a line in the first movie that I think is the most important line in the entire series. And it's not one of the most famous ones. It's not during the red pill, blue pill speech. It's not there is no spoon. It's a quieter moment. Neo, having just been put through the JUMP program, a training simulation in the computer system that's not actually the Matrix, but is something that they can, that humans in the story can do in the computers. He taps in, does the JUMP program, fails, gets hurt in the simulation, experiences a little bit of bodily trauma in the simulation, and then he's back in the real world. And he notices that his mouth is bleeding, just like it was after the fall in the simulation. The trauma only happened in the simulation, but his body carried the weight of said trauma. So he turns to Morpheus and he asks, I thought it wasn't real. And Morpheus, in all of the Fishburne glory, says, your mind makes it real. That's it. That's the line. Now, in the movie, Neo follows that up with, if you die in the Matrix, You die here? And Morpheus confirms the body cannot live without the mind. Now, most people would read that as a science fiction plot mechanic, a rule of the world that the Wachowskis built or whoever built it. I read it as a description of the power and relationship one has to the inner storyteller, the power of the inner storyteller and one's relationship to it. Because what Morpheus is describing is not only unique to a fictional simulated reality. It's it's the actual relationship between the stories running inside a human being and the physical, biological lived experience of that human being. The body doesn't 100% distinguish between a story and an event. That's why the greatest of athletes and the greatest of musicians and the greatest of pick a field always have something in their regimen called mental rehearsal. The, the body responds to the meaning being assigned to the experience, even if the experience is mental or emotional or both instead of physical. You get cortisol, the stress hormone. You get posture changes, sometimes permanent. You get chronic illness. You get the physical signatures of the stories a person has been running for years or is running right now about something that just happened. The placebo effect is another example. The body is keeping score of a story or narratives. The conscious mind may never actually directly examine. The mind makes it real. It's not a metaphor. It might be a mechanism of how this life actually works. And here is here is where I want to take this a little bit further. The individual inner storyteller does not operate in isolation. It never has. As I explore in my book, it is not separate from the collective inner storyteller, the way that a cup of water may be separate from the ocean. The individual inner storyteller is the ocean expressing itself locally. A wave would be an expression on the surface, for instance, shaped by everything moving through the larger body simultaneously, from currents to pressure, airflow, the pull of everything adjacent. Whatever is running collectively flows through the individual. Whether they consented to it or are aware of it or not. And whatever the individual runs with enough clarity and enough consistency always ripples into what science may call the field, the ether, whatever. It's symbiotic harmonics. It's proportional influence flowing in both directions, in and out, governed by natural law the same way everything else is. And this is why the inner storyteller work is not just self help in the conventional sense. It's not about feeling better. It's about recognizing that the stories that you're running, consciously or unconsciously, the ones you inherited, the ones installed before you could examine them, the ones you have been protecting without knowing why, are not just psychological. They are influencing the physical. Some might say sourcing the physical or the causing the effect that we see in the physical. They are relational to what we do, think, and feel. They are field events. Your mind makes it real. The question is, which story, good people, your mind is running, and whether or not you chose it. Which brings me to today's guest, because the work of examining the story and then actually doing real out boots on the ground work about it, doing something about it in the real world, building differently, living differently, structuring your life outside the systems we've been dismantling on this channel. That work requires more than just philosophy alone. It requires practical people who are actually in it to win it. People who have put skin in the game and are building the alternatives, while most people are still arguing about whether the current system is worth saving. Mr. John Bush is one of those people. He is a sovereignty and freedom movement leader here in Austin, a community builder, deeply involved in DeFi, decentralized internet infrastructure, private trust structures, and the practical architecture of what it actually looks like to exit the systems we've been talking about. He's also a Christian, a freestyle rapper, a man of many hats, and a genuine friend to humanity. I hope he considers me a friend as well.
Oh, yeah.
In the truest sense of that phrase. Mr. John Bush, German Bush, not British Bush. Welcome to the Inner Storyteller, good brother. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for the deep words about storytelling. And nothing could be further from the truth, or nothing could be more true, I should say.
I was wondering.
Yeah, wait a second. I really appreciate your perspective on that front. And a lot of people, it's this challenge because a lot of people aren't conscious of their thoughts and the stories they tell themselves. And they're definitely not taking action, or that when they start to take action, they run into limiting beliefs and friction and they just give up. But then there's a lot of people also, especially in our freedom and the more woo-woo community, that are so stuck in their head, just constantly in the story game, that they're not taking time to build and create. So there's a bit of a tension there, and it's all about finding that sweet spot.
Absolutely. Rootin' tootin' lootly. Well, before I actually ask you the first podcast question, I do invite you to tell the people just generally about yourself and your work, specifically in the exit and build aspects of your work. You know, what it means to actually do community with it, you know, with exiting the systems that are not working in our favor in mind and in heart and in spirit. You know, what's that work all about? How'd you get into it? Just briefly, you know, kind of overview what's happening.
Okay. Well, I've been doing activism in one shape or another since 2002. When I woke up about 9/11, but even that term waking up, right? I'm still waking up. It's a constant wake up from a slumber, and then you find new layers of waking up. But 9/11 definitely caught my attention, saw that it was carried out by criminal elements with our own government, from the old Alex Jones, who kind of went off the rails, and I don't think he's the same that he used to be, but much respect. Caught a documentary in Austin. Much respect. Where respect's due. Oh, you were in the chat and we were talking about this the other day, huh? So definitely much respect. And that was a big eye opener for me. That took me down the rabbit holes of conspiracy and really caring a little bit more about what the heck's going on in the world. Tried to wake people up, shove red pills down people's throats. Got involved in political activism and politics, learned about libertarianism through the good Dr. Ron Paul. A lot of political activism for the Ron Paul campaign in 2007, 2008. Then we started a political action committee called Texans for Accountable Government, lobbied the local city government, got some stuff passed, lobbied the state legislature, got some stuff passed, ran candidates, was a campaign manager for a few different campaigns, just really was going hard in the paint when it comes to trying to shift government to be more honoring of our freedom. And I came to realize after a whole lot of effort that it didn't make me or my family or my crew one iota more free. In fact, it was just a whole lot of spinning our wheels. And that's when I began to seek alternative solutions. In fact, the mother of my kids was one that really helped push both of us along at the time. And that's when we started exploring alternative institutions, is what I used to call it. Now we call it
Okay.
the parallel economy or the counter economy. And an extension of that, of course, is this exit and build strategy. So for the past, I don't know, 16 years, I've been focused on exiting systems that we find to be morally reprehensible, useless, completely corrupt, and building new systems, decentralized voluntary systems. Exiting the banks and reliance on the US dollar is a perfect example, in building alternative currency networks instead. And on the flip side, when we say exit, we mean completely opting out of all government and man-made law nonsense. The sovereignty piece is it was a missing piece for much of my activism. But it's also that we build these systems so as to gracefully transition to the exit without, losing everything and getting ourselves in trouble. So that's really what I'm all about. It does happen. I started a company called Live Free Academy in April 2021 to help teach people this stuff. Co-founded the Freedom Cell Network many years ago, decentralized peer-to-peer solutions focused group. Co-founded the Greater Reset with Derek, now the People's Reset, and then more recently been doing a lot of work in the private realm space with the Trifecta model through my private membership association, Divine Purpose PMA. Father of two, live here in Central Texas, and yes, I consider you and your lovely lady and your lovely child dear friends of mine, and I'm always grateful and excited to see you guys out at in-person events and stuff.
Well, that just warms my heart, good brother. Definitely consider you a friend as well. And my Christian friends would say we pray for you. You know what I'm saying? We keep you in mind when we got things coming up, and try to weigh what we want to, like, maybe either invite you to or whatever. But we think about you, man, and we definitely enjoy learning more and more about what you've been involved with for the last, you said 16, 17 years, which is like crazy. Because for me, and this is all before I even get into the podcast questions, for me, I've been into like discharge debt and right to travel and constitutionalist versus private trust, this and whatnot, for maybe 2 years. And I feel like I'm changed so much from my leftist black kid in America days. You know what I'm saying? Just as you said, rolling down the street, smoking and gin and juice.
Right.
Back in the day. Yeah. And it's also very interesting that you mentioned, gone are the days that we could find real hope in reform. Right? Gone are the freaking days. Take me back to when I thought we could vote somebody in, and or like vote with our dollars. A nice little saying there. And I have at least no invested hope in any of that anymore. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. It's like, bring me back,
Yeah. We're a bit naive, I guess, about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you step into the world and you're like, oh, people were saying this in the 1800s. Okay. All right. Looks like I'm a little late to the party. Not to say that everybody is right or every guru is correct or whatever. Everything keeps changing any freaking way, right?
Yeah. But the only constant is change, they say. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's get into our first real podcast question here. Question number 1. In your perspective, given everything that you've seen and built or been a part of, people you've worked with, what does sovereignty actually require of an average American right now? Not the concept, but the strategy and or practice or practices that we can explore. What does it require to, let's say, express one's God-given sovereignty?
Okay, and by sovereignty, we're talking about in the lawful context, or just like
Absolutely.
being the sole authority over our lives?
I would say a mesh between legal and like spirit, like everyday.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a bit of a lean towards the legal side because I'm all about that. I know what securities fraud is. I know some stuff that I haven't talked about on this channel yet. But I don't know them as well as somebody who's been in the game for 8 times the amount of time that I've been in the game, right? I got 2.5 years, you got 17. So what does recognizing, expressing, um, your sovereignty look like for an average American? For somebody who maybe either just be getting started or has the desire but doesn't know anything except, they got this mail from the IRS and they're tired of it.
Okay. It's actually been 24 years since I
Oh,
since I quote
pardon
unquote.
me.
Yeah. Just throwing that out there. And it's just been a constant evolution and like taking ownership and recognizing that I was wrong about stuff and this path ain't the best path. Also overcoming like arrogance, like this is the best way and you're a fool for not doing it this way. There's a lot of folks that are still in that wavelength, and I don't think it's going to get us anywhere. But I think above all else, it takes courage. Courage in a variety of different ways. For one, in the beginning, to be able to take the red pill, right? Back to the Morpheus analogy, it took courage to I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. And even though I'm not really satisfied with my status quo life, there is some comfort to it. There's at least a comfort to the knowing and some discomfort that comes along with not knowing and taking a risk. It takes courage in the first place to be able to recognize that maybe you've been wrong or that you've been lied to. And a lot of people build an entire worldview and identity on adherence to the status quo, adherence to the law, belief in authority, belief in what their doctor tells them about how to get well, belief in politics, belief in a politician. And so first and foremost, it takes courage to be able to quiet your ego and recognize wait a second, maybe this Trump, for example, is a perfect example. Because whenever I said you've been lied to, a lot of people don't have the courage to snap out of the trance, the programming. And so they stick in that hypnotic rhythm because it's more comforting and simple just to not accept that I was wrong, which man, oh man, last year I was so humbled that I have no problem accepting. In fact, I seek it out, just radically seek out the feedback from people. Sometimes it gets annoying too. And I'm like, all right, I got it. You made your point and you keep making your point. And boy, I got a lot to say about you, but go ahead and let me have it. Anyway, so quieting your ego and being willing to accept that maybe you were lied to and maybe you believed a bunch of stuff and it's okay to feel a little silly for a little bit. There's a massive propaganda machine that's being operated against us. And so that would be the first piece of the confidence. And then there's also confidence in being different than other people. And like the conversations at the Thanksgiving dinner table, when somebody brings up the shot or what happened with COVID, or conversations about voting come up, and having the courage to speak out and to be different, because we have a physiological and a biological or an evolutionary tendency towards fitting in with the tribe. Because if you didn't fit in with the tribe back in the day, you got left behind and you couldn't survive on your own. So it's literally wired in us. So it takes courage to break free of that. And then as you start exiting, whether it's using alternative currencies, whether it's transacting under the table, whether it's no longer being a taxpayer, whether it's whatever, setting up your first trust account without any certificate of formation and marching into the bank, that takes courage to start stepping outside, because then you're kind of worried about the unknown. Maybe I'm going to get in trouble. Maybe this is all going to come crashing down on me one day. And then I think it takes courage too to continue when you have setbacks. And I guess these are all mapped out in the phases that you'll go through, right? First, you got to be willing to take the red pill. Then you got to be willing to sit with the discomfort that comes from being different than everyone else. Then when you actually start exiting, you're like, whoa, this is actually happening, and I'm feeling a little bit anxious and nervous. And then there could be times where the next thing, I guess, would be to have the courage to fail and to keep on at it. And then the final time would be hopefully we experience this as little as possible, and hopefully we never experience it, but having the courage to stick with this, even if the predator class or the government or the bureaucrats coming after you, to be able to stand your ground in court, for example, also takes courage. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I think courage is a necessary foundational component of living a sovereign life.
I think that is a very beautiful answer. It's all encompassing. In my work in on this channel and in my 2 books, I always put courage adjacent to care, and I distinguish care. I say true care, right? True care, to capital T, capital C, and basically the the essence of true care, or the essence of the difference between true care and care, is always action, and action in the direction against your comfort zone does always take courage. And so they're adjacent. They kind of go together, not opposites of sides of a coin, but they do go together in the way that coins may go with dollars. And there's something you said towards the beginning. Yeah, people identify as their political ideology, and that's a very, for my I'm a philosopher, right? I'm a bunch of things, but I'm a philosopher first. And as a philosopher, that part stood out to me as extremely important. And maybe before I ask you the next question, I can get you to respond to this a little bit. But
I'm going to turn my AC on real quick, but I'm listening. I can hear you.
Okay, you can. Okay, that's good enough. Identity is, and let me just do this too, is the core, one of the core aspects of the story that we're telling ourselves about ourselves, right? The who I am answer. And when who I am is either regulated, limited, or pushed into the box of my current political philosophy, then what that may do is hinder somebody's ability to grow, and to grow authentically. Right. And that's my opinion. I would love to get maybe some of your thoughts on that before moving on to the next question.
Yeah, I guess people become rigid in identities, specifically political parties and political beliefs. And well, I think it happens more so too when there's this like cult of personality that gets worked in. And then any type of tribalism or us versus them situation puts people in a vulnerable position to be manipulated, because oftentimes with, like empty political parties and political philosophies like Republican or Democrat or even libertarian, capital L, libertarian in some ways, it's more like this empty shell of a philosophy, when ultimately what's most important are principles. And so I remember like when the war in Iran stuff started kicking off, and it's just like, oh my God, this is the same thing that we, that meme from Marty McFly is like, I've seen this one. It's a rewrite.
Yes.
It's like the same thing. Because waking up in 2002 and seeing like, okay, this is obviously a false flag. And then the war in Afghanistan was like, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. And then the war in Iraq even made less sense. I was aware the whole time, reading books about blowback and all sorts of stuff. So I got to just see it play out with a critical eye. And then every time it's played out again, it's like, oh, come on, give me a freaking break. And so I was noting like a lot of people, and mind you, because they're probably like lack the inner authority, they're probably just regurgitating what they hear on Fox News or their favorite podcaster or influencer on X, all the talking points, which oftentimes are coming from the RNC and coming from some deeper source. But they're just like, well, they're slaughtering people. The Iranian regime is slaughtering the protesters, and they have these nuclear weapons, and it's because Biden did this and that. And it's like, okay, but do you like have some sort of framework that you use to evaluate whether a U.S. military intervention is a good idea or a bad idea? and again, I think we shouldn't even have a U.S. government, as an anarchist. So, but when you're talking with just the everyday
in the
folks, you're
paradigm,
yeah, you're like, come on, do you even have some sort of principles that you abide by? Like, how about just war theory? Like, we shouldn't initiate aggression against another nation, but we ought to defend ourselves. And nobody was even like, well, we can justify it with just war theory because they actually have a credible threat. It's not even talking about that. It's just talking about this utilitarian BS that is just like, come on, man. And so when people don't have that foundational, they don't abide by principles first and foremost, those principles, if you have good principles, and you've like examined them through some sort of moral, rigid structure, and you've philosophized and hashed it out with yourself, right? Then those principles oftentimes are unchanging. They could change as we evolve and as we mature and such, but more often than not, those principles are your principles. And you're like, this is what I believe. And I know it. I have an inner knowing that these principles are the right principles for me, for my life, and for the type of world, the family I want to raise, the society that I want to grow up in and raise my children in. And so when you don't have those principles that ground you and root you, then it's a lot easier to get taken for a ride and to be swayed. And then what I was getting at earlier with the problem with political parties is, this ties in with the principles. So when you have principles, then you stand for something. This is what I'm for. I like this person because they align with my principles. I like this party. I like this initiative. I like this strategy, this plan. It aligns with my principles. I'm for that. I want to be a part of creating that. But often in this movement, especially, people define themselves by what they're in opposition to, and that puts them in a reactionary paradigm. And when we're in a reactionary mental state, then we're much more easily manipulated. And this is what's happening that I take offense to, like this whole the immigration stuff. And there's cultures, right? So, I mean, my dad's Anglo German, British, German, and Irish. My mom, most of her blood is indigenous Mexican and then Spanish. And then I found out recently, my mom's like 18% Sephardic Jew, which is kind of a trip. So I'm like, 9%.
Gotta stop the podcast. Gotta get off. No.
But that's the OG Jews there, not the Ashkenazi,
right.
whatchamacallit, Khazarian Jews. Yeah. Anyway, my point is like, I recognize that there's Anglo-Saxon culture that is being attacked and diminished. And then there's this double standard as far as quote unquote minority races can express themselves and celebrate, but it's white power and that's bad. And so I see that there's an attack taking place to like just whatever, it's deliberate to take away these cultures that have in large part preserved freedom in many ways, but then on the other token diminished it a great deal. So that's a problem. And we could talk about that problem objectively. And we could talk about this forced immigration and destroying third world countries to cause that and diminishing the borders and all sorts of stuff. Problem, reaction, solution. But then there's a lot of people that get caught up in it in a reactionary way and then are supportive of a strongman president like Trump, who doesn't end up not even being that strong after all. He certainly doesn't look strong with Iran.
Strong as a piece of straw.
As a what?
As a piece of straw, a piece of hay.
Oh, a piece of straw. Yeah. He's a total clown. Oh my goodness. Anyway, that reactionary nature enables people to get real angry and aggressive and hateful. And they start to see people as the other. And then oftentimes they get leveraged for a political aim like digital ID or strong border enforcement, or whatever it may be. Anyway, so that was a long answer to your little side question.
No. It was excellent. And
principles. It comes down to principles. We ought to have
down to principles, which etymologically set means first things. Principles means first things. And I don't know. Do you like the people that break down the etymology of the words that we
games?
use?
Yeah, you can find deeper meaning in it.
Jurisdiction, justification, all of these words. Yeah.
It's a cool
Um,
study in the Bible too. And then you may find that you've been
yeah.
communicating some spell that doesn't mean what you think it means.
Bless
And
you.
it's like, it's powerful over power over you and all sorts of stuff.
It blew. I'm gonna veer back to our topic, but it blew my mind when somebody explained to me, and I don't know if I'm fully like on the bandwagon, but they explained to me. They said, well, you know, the happy birthday ritual actually placebo affects you to getting older, to feeling older, to you know, it's adjacent with all of the other phase of life psyop, you know, propaganda psyops that we go with, like the happy birthday song, you blowing out candles. There's always candles in the dark occult ritualistic happenings. You know, I was like, I can't deny there's something there, but I'm gonna have to consult with my inner Aristotle on that one. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows how deep it goes? Who knows how much
So
we've been lied to?
who knows, bro? So okay. It takes courage. It eventually, of course, takes a little know-how, takes as you said, the courage to get it wrong. So you get it wrong until you can get it right. You get it right. Sometimes when you're getting it right, you're pursued, sought after by forces that don't have your best interests at heart. So there's no guarantees in any of this on the legal, you know, expressing your sovereignty, maybe also bringing people to learn how to express their sovereignty. There's no guarantees of success or safety in this arena. The decentralized tools sometimes fail. The trust structures are sometimes one or two words or one or two provisions short of being airtight from the court system, and they get challenged, and sometimes they get illegally. You know, you might get a court order that you're either going to sit in a cage or you're going to comply, right? The community can fracture. Given this reality, where there are strategies, there are potential processes, all of this, but there's no guarantees. How how do we learn to trust the process? And a kind of follow up, how do we keep building the exit and the alternative when the outcome is uncertain?
There's a lot of ways to attack that one. These are great questions, by the way, and they come up in my work all the time because I'm just constantly trying to overcome people's objections to put in the work in and making stuff happen. And it's like a
Yeah.
lot of people think well, I try to make this clear as often as I can. Like people think the work I'm doing is teaching you how to set up a crypto wallet. And here's the steps you got to take. Make sure you back the seed phrase up. And here's how you send and receive crypto. And this crypto is good for this and that one's good for that. But it's really just helping people remember how powerful they are and overcome that story that they've been telling themselves that they suck at technology and they're never going to be able to figure this out or whatever it may be. So I got like a bunch of different answers. Let's hit some good ones. One of them is like, in the first place, if you don't take action, even though there's an unknown outcome, it's very likely we do know what the outcome will be without taking exit and build style actions. We're going to be digitally enslaved in some sort of prison planet, and more so than what our future looks like, the concern is what your child's future looks like, right? And their children, what their future is going to look like. It's going to be hardcore dystopia. I think it's going to be hardcore dystopia in mass anyway. It's just that can we try to carve out our own little piece of the pie? And then another thing is like there's no okay, yeah, the destination, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So when we're doing activism and freedom stuff, if we come at it from a nice, grounded, happy, fruitful, loving, selfless way, then it's actually fun. Like we're having fun. You're mixing hip hop into the message. We're at the Freedom Cell meetups. I'm having a freaking Mexican martini, like it's fun. And it's fun to build stuff to have the fulfillment with trying something, launching a new product, dropping the album, putting out a podcast, having people come give you feedback. Oh, it's been great to meet you, whatever it may be. It's enjoyable.
Right.
So it's like, this is a good way to live anyway. Why the heck not? If you can make it fun and enjoyable. It's not some escape and doom and gloom. Although in my marketing and messaging, I do work in some fear, because fear is a powerful motivator. And again, I'm trying to get people to take action. And I've always struggled with like, well, should we just focus all of our marketing and messaging on manifesting the ideal world? Yeah, the pain is, it's people are more motivated by being pushed away from something negative than they are from being pulled towards something beautiful. But you always work both of them in. And so ultimately too, it's like, maybe there is an unknown, maybe we all get crushed, but like from the spiritual nature, like we're doing God's work, and we don't really have much of a choice. This is it. This is the life that we've been blessed with. And I, for one, am grateful that I get to play a role. We get to play a role in the animating contest of freedom, and hopefully leave a legacy of how our work impacted the future generations and the generations after that. And then like, there's always the fear of them coming like, well, what if, because we're like, you should leave the city and buy land out in the country and we could build some homesteads and communities and stuff. And they're like, well, what if they send drones out to come kill us? Or they get like aerial drones that shoot us, like predator drones and stuff.
Or just ticks. But yeah.
Yeah, or some locus of some whatever. Then it's just like, well, then we're screwed. We're screwed anyway. Like, that's just such a fatalist argument that we might as well not even bring it up. Because if they want to kill us so bad that they're going to send out these robots to kill us, and we don't have our own army of robots to push back, which I don't see that happening, then we're dead. That's why it's good to be right with God. And that's why it's like, like, I hope that at least my kids are full grown. If this were to ever happen, I don't want this to happen by any means. No. But if my kids were full grown and I did a good job raising them, it seems like it'd be a glorious way to dying on your feet. And like, you take a stand one day, maybe it's defending a community member. Maybe it's like, this is my land. And this is the land that I've stewarded. And I've been doing my best to comply with this or that, or to play nice in these areas. And maybe you're standing on some lawful argument, or maybe not. Right. They could still try to come take the land anyway. And you're just like, no, I'm not going to let you take my land today. And whatever, if UN blue helmets or predator drones come take you out, then that's just what happens. And hopefully
it's almost like you almost want to ask them, well, do the opposite thought experiment. Be out there already, having a great time. You got your farm, you got your homestead, you got your homeschooling, help. You might even have a neighbor who's in community with you, right? And you're out there, and somebody says, hey, like, property tax is slavery, right? But a way out is you got to come in the city. And when you come in the city, you get an apartment, you do this paperwork, you do this kind of thing, blah, 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 and you don't even pay nothing. And some argument, right? And this is the opposite thought experiment. And then the person who's out there in the rural goes, wait, but what if when I'm in the city, they blow it up? It's like, you could say either one. We in the city now. You could say either one, right? I'm in an apartment. You might be in a home. We are never going to be outside of the quote unquote jurisdiction of the actual evil at the top of the food chain, right? To call back to the Matrix again, Morpheus in an earlier scene says they are holding all the keys, they are guarding all the doors. Therefore, somebody eventually is going to have to fight them. Now, whether that fight is in self-defense, as you described, or an offensive, or maybe a mutual, where there's a defensive front and an offensive front from a community of people, or a coming together of a large group of people, what have you, eventually the doors are going to have to open. Now, whether they open and the only ones left on earth are the truly evil, or they open and everybody's still here, the doors are going to have to, the key holders are going to have to be challenged. And as you pointed out very eloquently, courage is going to be at the front of that helm. Now, I have one last question here, and I'm too nervous to let myself get within 10 minutes of the end of the show before asking it. But you may have a short answer to this question, and we could get back to maybe just chatting about on this stuff here after you give your brief answer, or you may have a nice little answer for me. But check it out. Last one. You may have heard me talk about the concept of the inner storyteller, whether on this channel or in person. The framework, I wrote a book, the philosophy. I want to know what you actually maybe think about the inner storyteller um, as a concept. From where you sit, doing the practical sovereignty work, doing or recognizing your faith journey, and just living your life as Mr. Bush, Mr. John Bush. I don't want to call you Mr. Bush, president. What do you make of the concept of the inner storyteller, John?
Why don't you break your framework down for me real quick? Because I haven't read your book, and I have seen your channel in a chunk of your work. But like, if you had a core framework, what would it be? Because the whole inner game and the storytelling thing, like that's like a broad thing. But why don't you tell me what the framework is?
So ontologically speaking, meaning the big picture essence, I'm saying this for the audience, the big picture essence of the thing. The inner storyteller is the third seat of consciousness. If you look towards Eastern philosophy, you'll find that a lot of gurus, yogis, and just mystically tapped in people will say that awareness or pure consciousness or some form of that kind of thing is the equivalent of what science would call the field, what some esoteric scientists may call the ether, just the space that gives rise to space, the space before space and time, the alive, the only thing above this would be the creator, of which we don't have any words, any accurate words, so to speak. And then second seat would be still in the sort of Vedanta, Advaita circles, some of the Taoist philosophy would be the I am, which in American would just be the knowing of one's self. The I am is not necessarily what modern science would call the observer. The observer would be within the bubble of the I am. The I am is the super basic yet super foundational and most intimate experience of self's existence. Self-doing comes later, actually a few steps later, because the third seat in my work, in my growing philosophy, is the inner storyteller. The inner storyteller is a couple things. First and foremost is why our inner experience is always in story form. Whether we are experiencing a symbol, an event, or a memory, that experience is happening in the form, or our experience of the happenings are in the form of stories. We interpret via story, we define via story, we live out characters that are in stories. This is what we do because our inner experience is always in story form. And so it's pointing to a mechanism that many philosophers, many scientists even have already been talking about, but it's a framework that's coming through me as far as the inner storyteller, the name for it and stuff like that. And from there we kind of branch off into its functions. Like I talk often about the sorting function of the inner storyteller, which has to do with how we are psychologically programmed, whether the programming is coming from nefarious places or just just being here over years. Our mind is a programmable phenomenon, and how we go about expressing ourselves, invoking courage, and whatnot. All of that comes from or stems from the programs running in the inner storyteller, in my philosophy. And so that's very big picture, non-detailed, non-nuanced sort of naming of the concept. What do you think about that?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's heavy, deep, lots comes up, spiritual context, metaphysical. So there's all sorts of rabbit holes to go down with, like, the philosophizing and hashing out the nature of reality and the universe and self-perception and then different layers, starting with the creator and then the ether or whatever, all that other description of it, like the living force, I think they would call it in the Star Wars universe, right?
The force. Yeah, the force. Yeah.
I don't know if mana is part of that. Would that be that
Nah,
level?
mana is more so magical power in anime. You talking about mana? Yeah.
Isn't there something? There's another. I don't know what background it's from.
Okay.
So lots there, and I think that this is an important piece for people that, in general, but also especially mission-driven people, to like have a connection, have an awareness, have a knowledge, and ideally we come to know that, like a knowing. Like with my Christian faith, I struggled for the longest time intellectually with Jesus as a being that was resurrected, or Jesus as the Son of God. I believed for a while that Jesus was a historical figure and did a lot of great stuff, and then maybe it was like this ascended master kind of vibe or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then as my world fell apart in 2025 and went through divorce, and our community fell apart and all sorts of chaos and calamity, which was all a gift and a blessing, of course. I started going to church more and reading scripture more and really opening my mind to it more, observing my mom having gone through cancer and how strong her faith was and how she was just so courageous. And I was like, dang, I'd be freaking out if I thought that there's a chance that I'm not going to make it. She is going to make it now, thank God. So that was a big eye-opener for me. Anyway, it was when I came to know a knowing of Jesus, an awareness, a presence, a relationship, a knowing, right? So it's like, it's great to contemplate. It's great to philosophize. It's great to theorize and to read books and to logically hash stuff out. But it's that knowing that I think we're all after. And to take it deeper on your framework, I guess the inner storytelling part, we have to overcome those programs and those stories that are imparted upon us in large part to keep us from knowing, whatever that looks like, and whatever framework or whatever truth people subscribe to when it comes to knowing God or having a relationship with Christ or this philosophy or that philosophy. There's something there. I ultimately think it's the same thing. It's just communicated in different ways. And there's all these religions and there's religious texts. And I think there's like overlap. Where there's overlap, I think is the closest to the truth. And a lot of it has to come with oneness and love, right? Love is the answer, right? Love will find a way.
It really is.
And Jesus was the manifestation of love in the flesh, and the philosophy and message was so potent there. So yeah, I appreciate it. There's a lot to hash out. It'd probably be a longer conversation if we want to go deeper.
Well,
on
your
first two layers, but to take it to where I think it's more practical. And I try to stay rooted in the practical. Like stuff like flat earth people are so passionate about flat earth. Same thing with the virus, no virus. And I was always like, man, those are two things that I don't know how much it'll impact me, whether it's viruses are real or not real. I'm still going to try to be as healthy as I possibly can. My daughter gets sick from time to time because she would do dance school for young kids, and got snot all over their hands and stuff. And so it's like, if my daughter has a fever or something, I'm still going to have her when it's my day to have her, and I'm still going to hang out with her and watch a movie together or whatever. So, but I'm going to try to be the healthiest person I could be. Anyway, my point is, it's like I try to stay rooted in the practical, which I would say is the inner storytelling layer of your framework. The other stuff is like, let's go deep and let's have a great conversation. But it's through that conversation that we actually can get closer to knowing and closer to God. which is cool.
Yeah, there's
'cause
a
in the whole-
balance.
Yeah, in the Christian thing, it's like there's still doubt and skepticism and questions. And me and my good friend Ryan, business partner, we'll like hash it out. He's Orthodox, and I'm more Protestant. I'm more
Oh,
Protestant. He's a Christian extremist,
Christian.
and I always give him a hard time about it too. But he's great. But we'll like debate it out, hash it out, especially if we're a little whiskey drunk, which is a sin in itself to get that inebriated. But we'll like talk for hours and hours and hours. And it's my belief, ideally if you're sober, that those questions and that scrutiny brings you closer to God. And like God is looking down, like I'm rejoicing to see you guys care so deeply about your connection to truth and to source that you're going to like debate it out and have these endless conversations about it. So like I said, there's merit to it, but I like the inner storytelling game because it makes you more successful at manifesting in the practical world and wealth, abundance, healthy relationship with the children and whatever that may be. So, but I appreciate your layers there.
Can I add a little bit to where you're at right now? Because what it comes down to is impressions versus principle. Principle internally are also experienced in story form, but impressions are louder. They're loud in general. What gets pressed into you, what gets pressed into your story, your life experience, also what gets pressed into your mind as this is what you should think, this is how you should think. This is what you should feel when these experiences happen. This is what you should feel. This is how you should react. Those impressions are loud. They're constant, not just consistent, but also constant. They're reinforced socially. We see evidence that may suggest truthfulness out in the world, likely every day. Our impressions are doing a lot of programming all day long. Whereas principles are quiet, they're still, they're more like the awareness that you look for in a meditation session or in a deep, intentionally deep prayer session, right? Where you're trying to tap into something that's beyond your regular quiet. That's so quiet it's beyond what you used to as quiet. And so intimate that it's beyond the intimacy that you could have with like your mom or something, beyond familial and just human to human, like it's something deep. And that stillness is where the principles that are true for everyone, regardless of the language, regardless of the time or that like time era, regardless of the customs of society, the objective principles when it comes to like objective morality, which on this channel we believe in. There is an objective morality set forth by the creator, whatever that creator's name is this week. But impressions are not all trying to pull you away from principle, but are just they hit different. Whereas principle, like I said, is steady, right? There's something constant about it. And as you were pointing to the fact that it's cool to like philosophize, it's cool and it's fun, and it does in a balanced way bring us closer as well to truth, to go like super deep into things that are a little impractical and big brain and meta. But it's also important to balance that with keeping, real world action, or when the conversation gets to, so what do we do about it, being more practical. And practicality in a moral sense requires us to learn and adhere and respect and honor principle. And that's kind of where I sit with that. Yeah. Man, we are at exactly 59 minutes and 5 seconds. Don't know how much of a stickler you're going to be with time today, but I'm already super enjoying myself. How you feeling over there, John?
Good. Yeah, this has been great. Appreciate you.
When we were texting, you said, 30 minutes isn't enough to really go in. I was like, yeah, that's true. I think I made a "that's what she said" joke, but I was like, boy. Right now, I'm feeling like, man, we should have did 2 hours because you just know so much, and I feel like we align on a lot of things, even if we have completely different language. Um, I'm glad I didn't like try to jump in so many times because as soon as you get to the end of your thought, I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I'm on board exactly with what you're saying. I get it. Um, so I would love to invite you on again at some point in the future.
Yeah.
We can, maybe even plan to go into specific topics. Whether it's from a strategy side, if you even talk about that stuff publicly, I don't know. I haven't asked you certain questions yet, but or just more philosophize, and we can even clash on the spiritual. Who knows, we might agree a lot more
Who
than.
knows what we get into?
Yeah. I'm a half Christian, right? There's a half Christian, then there's Christian, then there's
Oh,
Christian,
I heard you say
and there's
Christian.
Christian.
Yeah.
I made that up though. That's just a joke.
No,
I
it
don't
makes
really have a
sense.
tier list, but
There's
I
tiers.
I'm somebody that loves Christ and had too much of a stint look into some of the history behind certain church movements to have the same reverence for the church, or like the religion Christianity. And I'm not someone who personally takes every single word in the King James version of the Bible as the word of God. I don't personally share that opinion, but
So you
I
just
love
pick and
Christ.
choose then.
No. I think there's an objective truth, and I think that after your eyes are open to a certain degree, you just kind of discern what just completely doesn't feel accurate or correct versus like what doesn't feel right morally. Just what doesn't feel like accurate. And I personally don't have any problem with the resurrection or him coming back for a couple days, teaching some stuff, but I do have some beef with the Bible, you could say, respectfully. We you know
Yeah,
there's a
that'd be a
I don't
great.
know nothing.
I'd be down to go. Be down to deep dive. I'll say. Well, one thing, I think the veracity of the Bible, as far as it being preserved authentically and truthfully, as far as what was communicated by the prophets, by Jesus and his disciples, I think that based on the research of Wes Huff and others,
I've seen a lot of West
because
stuff.
we're like because as conspiracy folks, we have a tendency towards like, well, surely there was some kind of conspiracy at the Council of Nicaea and Rome was involved and they had to have doctored and edited this and they cut this out in the Gnostic Gospels and the Nag Hammadi Library and the Book of Thomas.
Yeah, West doesn't really like the Gnostics at all, does he?
No, and so
like it.
Before, when I was dabbling, when I was what did you call it, a half Christian or one part Christian? I said I was dabbling. I think there's an element of like it was a lot of ego, and it was like it was a fear of going all the way in because to go all the way in is to submit. And to have a posture where Christ is in God is above you. And there's a lot of half Christian, and I'm not making the assumption that it's like we're gods, and like there's an equal footing with God, creator, and human, and that when I was dabbling, I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this Gnostic thing because I really am attracted to the philosophy and teaching of Jesus Christ. But this whole Lord and Savior thing, I don't know. I don't want to like. That's a submission.
Just give me the parables.
Yeah, just give me the good stuff. I don't want the hard stuff. But I found that like when I did submit humbly after everything fell apart, I was finally, my ego was like, you don't know shit, bro. You really fucked up and you were selfish and you don't have it all figured out, you arrogant prick. And I don't want to talk, storytelling. I have love for who I am and the man that I've become. But it was like I was like, I don't know shit. I don't have it figured out. I think I would do better trying to follow God's plan for me than whatever plan I think I got for me. Cause I sure as heck made some mistakes and some things. And so it was that posture of submission where I started to experience the greatest fruit. And that really, I could feel it, it meant
Nice.
something to me. And then,
No, that's yeah. Oh, go ahead.
well, just back to the Gnostic things, Wes Huff has this great explanation of how you actually can pick, and we're like conspiracy guys, so we can pick through an official narrative, right? And if you come at it critically, and we're not just wanting it to be true because we want there to be a conspiracy because the church or whatever, Rome, this or that, there's a lot of discrepancies and a lot of false names and a lot of phraseology and communication that the early Christian movement and early Jews didn't use, but it's worked into those gospels. And so when you examine it like that, objectively, and you're looking at it like, well, does this fit? Does this make sense? Why is this one written this way? And this one has a much better lineage that we could trace back to like the first century, right? And the early second century. This one didn't come on the scene till 100 years later. And it's like, there's some weirdness in it. And I think the Gnostic people that had a different religious belief that weren't part of the original church, which is the Orthodox Church, I think they were appropriating Jesus and his popularity to try to push their view, their religious beliefs. I think that's what happened with the Gnostic text, personally. Anyway, what do you got?
Be. No, yeah, could be. The historicity of the entire story. Yeah. Of the entire story is, I think, a different topic than like does the philosophy hold true or hold up next to lived experience. And I don't mean, like ones, like you said, there's a lot of ego and, oh, well, I don't think so, so therefore it's not that, but just where certain things are testable, tests are repeatable by nature, that kind of thing, right? Where it holds up against, and I'm not here to tell somebody what the real historicity is of the creation story. I wasn't there, or I was, but not me.
Well, that's where the faith thing comes in, and I used to think it was a cop out, but it's like, yeah, we weren't there. How do we actually know? You just have faith, and people have faith in different belief systems too, right? Because but there's a knowing that we both hit on. There's a knowing and then another way to communicate, we said it just a second ago, is like if there's a framework that bears fruit in your life, and fruit is like, it's not like I'm rich now or look at me and I'm getting all these views or whatever. It's like there's a fruit that's this wholesome love. Like when I look at your baby girl, like there's something. You guys are doing something right. There's something there that's like, this is it. This is what it's all about. And so if you can align your life with the framework, with principles that bear that fruit, then it's like, there's something here that is probably truth. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. And so that's why I love Christ, even though I may have some questions about the book that taught me about Christ, you know what I'm saying? And really I learned about Christ more so through people and movies before I actually saw what he said in the King James Version English translation of the Bible. And so, where I'll kind of leave my, cause there I've done whole episodes already, certain things, and we've been talking for a little bit. I know.
Yeah, I got to run, so we'll do a deep dive. But what do you got?
We'll do a deep dive. But where I'll leave my biblical belief at is, I think that Christ lives for real in me, and I ride for Christ, but I don't ride for the church. So that's where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? I think that a man named Yeshua actually did walk the earth. He might or might not have done all of the miracles. He might or might not have talked to Paul. Certain things I don't, where I wasn't there. And then you kind of test it, you see, and you go with an openness where it's like leaving a job, right? You go with an open, if the job's not violating you in any way. You go with an openness, but you don't burn the bridge. It's like, I'll see. I'm definitely not out here trying to be a hedonist and trying to convince people of solipsism that, oh, because only your mind is sure to exist, that means only your mind exists. It's like, well, no, that's a cop out. Anyway, but I'll get very long-winded, so I don't want to do that. Thank you so very much for coming and hanging out on the Inner Storyteller podcast. I do hope maybe next time you arrive here that you finished half of my book, because it's pretty cool. I also wrote another one a couple years ago. It's called Culture Control.
Cool.
Where I more so conspiracy, like this is what's wrong with the world. This is what you should be doing about it. God damn it, type of vibe, But yeah, John Bush, everybody, give him a hand.
Thanks for having me. I want to invite folks to our virtual summit we have. We're doing the Exit and Build conference in November, and then we got the Exit and Build summit is in person at Molly Engelhart Sovereignty Ranch, and it's November 5th to the 8th. Tons of great speakers are going to be there. Alex Zeck, the entire Sacred Honor Educational Fellowship crew will be there, and Mike Winter, Jason Crow of Cordal, all sorts of folks. And then leading up to it, we're doing 3 virtual summits. So that you got to get a ticket to the in-person event, but the virtual summits are absolutely free. exitandbuild.com/virtual, exitandbuild.com/virtual. The very first one is coming up this Saturday, June 13th, for the folks that are watching live. And I hope people will join us for that. And more importantly, join us for the in-person event.
Yes, indeed. Come through, jump in. Water's hot. Water's great. Thank you so much, man. And I will see you next time. Also, fans out there.
Well, am I going to see you this Thursday?
Yeah. No, we'll be there.
All right.
You already know. Everybody out there in the world, today is Monday. So I will see you all tomorrow. And we are going to be diving deeper into some of the things discussed today. So be excited, and I'll see you there. Peace and love. Like the video. Like the video, good people. You have to like the video, okay? It was written in the sky. It said, these people will like the video today. So if you disrespect the sky may come get you. So you got to like the video. I appreciate you. Peace out.